I attended high school in Oregon, in the Willamette Valley. My girlfriend at the time worked all summer in the fields. I often went with her to keep her company. In August, we climbed up into the combine and drove around in circles, cutting the wheat. The combine does the hard work. It cuts the grain, threshes it, and then pours the berries into the truck alongside. She often worked at night because it was more pleasant than in the heat of the day, but it was hot, still hot, and dusty. Dust got through the windows of the combine cab. Dust got through my bandana on my face. Dust got into everything. And noisy. The roar of the engine, the slashing of the blades, and the clatter of the threshing filled the small world surrounding the cab of the combine. The wheat swooshed as it rained a golden cascade into the collection trucks alongside in a slow vehicle ballet. The best nights were when we watched the giant orange harvest moon rise up into the dark. The fields looked otherworldly. Riding in that combine, I began to appreciate the amount of work that goes into every cake and every loaf of bread. All of the farmhands had to do their part, but it used to be even more work. Here, where I live in Portugal, some of the old harvesting methods are still used, like the cobblestone threshing and winnowing circles, where people beat the kernels from the shafts and then toss it into the wind to blow away the chaff. No wonder they needed to pause for harvest celebrations. In fact, groups of young people would make the winnowing itself a party, dancing, singing, drinking together while the chaff blew away. In the past, we had to rely on what was grown nearby for the bulk of our nutrition. High summer, before the first harvest, was one of the leaner times of year. Seedlings were turning into plants, and the sun was shining, but people still subsisted on stored food. So the first harvest was sacred, shared in joy and thanksgiving. The August 2nd celebration of first fruits is not such an obvious holiday nowadays, maybe because we have mostly moved away from being an agrarian society, except for those with sunburned necks, like my grandfathers, and those avid gardeners among us. We need our traditions of celebration. We need to pause, give thanks, and rest. We need to pause and enjoy the fruits of our labor. Maybe our labor isn't growing barley. Maybe it's growing a world of love and justice or spreading knowledge. And the beginning of August has other reasons. The Slavery Abolition Act of 1833 abolished slavery throughout the British Empire. It came into force the following year on August 1st, 1834. Even then, only enslaved people below the age of 6 were freed. For those passed over, emancipation was finally achieved at midnight, 31st of July, 1838. In 1985, Trinidad and Tobago declared a national holiday to occur on August 1st to commemorate the abolition of slavery. They celebrate and remember. It's not a coincidence that Carnival is celebrated in Canada and some Caribbean islands at the same time of year. Abolition does not come to fruition instantly. The 1833 law and in the US, the 1863 Emancipation Proclamation were the result of years and years of work. Even now, slavery is not prohibited in 94 countries. Change requires dreaming, working, and steadfast tending. It requires hard work and sacrifice, just like the labor required to grow grain and bring in sheaves of barley. Social change requires hard work before we can bring in the sheaves of justice. The work of justice takes a village. It takes people doing the work and then handing the baton to the next folks. It takes showing up, planting, watering, harvesting, threshing, winnowing, each doing our part. August Eve is the first of 3 harvest holidays in Wicca and Druidry. The other 2 are the autumn equinox and Samhain. Many pagans follow a cycle that mimics the cycle of the barley corn. This cycle helps us stay energized when our spirits are tired or times are lean. It helps us to stay focused when the world distracts. At the beginning of the cycle, starting with the final harvest in October, seeds are saved. Food is stored away to survive the fallow season. And in the winter, dreams are dreamed. What will come from the seeds? In the spring, seeds are sown with intention. I'm not talking about bell pepper seeds or flower seeds. I'm talking about the seeds of transformation or the seeds of a spiritual journey. These are the seeds that many people refer to as New Year's resolutions, or they're seeds of commitment, investment, or action. Over the summer, we work to plant and nurture these seeds. As the year turns to late summer, we hope to harvest what we have planted. In heathenism, a modern Norse-inspired religion, Frey Feast or Freyasblot is held August 1st. Blots are parties, and this party is for giving thanks. We give thanks for the fruits of the first harvest of the year. Ritually, a loaf of bread is baked as an offering to the god or goddess Frey. In Celtic traditions, the first harvest is sacred to the god Lugh. Some think of Lugh as a sun god similar to Apollo, which makes sense because the sun is so strong at this time of year. Others see Lugh as the god of keeping oaths and fulfilling promises. And isn't that what New Year's resolutions are? Promises. This is a time to check in and see what you've done so far this year to create a world of love and justice. This is the time to check your idea seedlings to see if they're bearing fruit. This is a time to check in with your community to see how you can help one another with the harvest. It's also the time to have some fun. Lughnasadh customs in Ireland, Wales, and Scotland are often parties, and sometimes rituals of fulfilling promises, like the custom of climbing hills and mountains at Lughnasadh that still survives, even though it has been recast as a Christian pilgrimage. I remember climbing a mountain in eastern Oregon when I was 12. We pulled ourselves up by tree roots and clambered over rocks. The older kids helped the younger, and we encouraged each other. And we each had our moment when it seemed too hard, and someone whined, "I can't do it!" And we had to take breaks. But we got there. At the top of the mountain, the view was spectacular, and we danced and whooped in joy. Our ancestors have many traditions around the harvesting of grain, whether it be wheat, rice, millet, barley, oats. Lammas is an Anglo-Saxon word meaning loaf mass. And on Loaf Mass Day, some communities have church processions to bakeries where the bakers are blessed. Ancient Romans called on carriers to bless their grain. Greeks honored Demeter. Egyptians invoked the brother and sister Nefer and Nepet. The Incans called on maize mother, Sarah Mama, or Mama Zara. The Cherokee celebrate Selu, the corn mother. A Nigerian or Brazilian might thank Orisha Oko for their grain harvest. Chinese households still leave an offering of the 5 grains for the kitchen gods. What do you do? How do you give thanks? What are the larger intentions you set earlier in the year? Maybe it was a New Year's resolution or part of another significant moment. What have you worked hard at, putting in the mental and physical labor to see your dreams manifested? Now, as we start finally seeing some of the fruits of that labor, in whatever form they're going to arrive, feel the relief and joy. Our work was not in vain. It's time to celebrate. The lesson of the first harvest is about what we can accomplish with dreams, plans, work, and celebration. We need to pause because the work is not over. So let us now pause and sing together. Facebook just reminded me that a few years back on August 1st, the birds were singing. There was sun in the sky and a nice breeze. And I was feeling joyful because we had just accomplished grocery shopping. So as we crossed the parking lot, I hopped up on one of the cement end of spot markers and pretended to walk a tightrope. When I hopped down, I saw my 30-year-old son giving me a puzzled look. Sometimes I forget that my random enjoyment of nonsense and willingness to play is unusual. I'm grateful my mom gave me that gift, and I wish everyone felt the call to celebrate and live in the moment. I believe that the most powerful gift from paganism and indigenous spiritualities is the spiritual practice of communal, rapturous ritual. In Western culture, dance clubs with pounding music and ecstatic dancing are about as close as many ever get. The music and dancing of Carnival is based on traditions that traveled across the ocean along with the captured peoples from Africa. Celebration helped them stay alive and nurture a future when their descendants would no longer be enslaved. Communal celebration helps us cope with feelings like melancholy and shame, and helps us survive social atrocities and brokenness. We create the feeling of communitas through revels of feasting or dancing or song. But it's been hard to engage in communal rapturous ritual during pandemic. We've had to learn to sing together while apart over Zoom connections, to celebrate over phone calls, and to dance with trees. This First Fruits holiday is a reminder that we've been working so hard, and we need to take the time to stop, to celebrate, and to acknowledge the toil, enjoy the abundance, give thanks, and then get back to the work ahead of us. Collective celebrations are moments when we reaffirm our covenant of love, of community, of relationship. We feel something like that when participating in dances of universal peace, or a sporting event, or a protest, or in Sunday worship services. My spouse and I have been watching RuPaul's Drag Race lately. The tradition of dressing up and creating a party and the costume balls that were made famous by that movie, Paris is Burning. The drag show acts came out of the LGBT underground among folks who were oppressed and struggling through life. We need the party, the celebration to make it through, especially when life is really hard. When I'm overwhelmed with work, celebration is one way I give myself the energy to persist. When I do the dishes, I stop and admire the full dish drainer. When I have a full day, my spouse and I share a high five or a giant imaginary check mark in the air together. What are the ways you celebrate? What things can you start celebrating that you've not been celebrating in the past? Yes, let's celebrate the small things along with the large things. We all possess a capacity for mystical euphoria. Why do we put it to use so seldomly? I invite us all to lean into your community. Use your communal magic to build the world we dream of. Let joyful song and celebration reaffirm your love for your community. What are the sheaves you are bringing in? What are you thankful for? Let's celebrate and give thanks together. So mote it be. Ashe, Aho, Suha, Amin, Amen, and blessed be.